this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
This is Tab Ramos from Inside American Soccer, and this summer, Topgolf is turning into the ultimate soccer destination. They've got a new soccer-themed game you can play with your group, exclusive food and drink items. They've even installed full-size soccer goals so you can try to hit golf balls right into the net. And every match all summer long will be on throughout the venue. And if you want to keep the fun going all summer, you can get the Topgolf Summer Fun Pass, which lets you play every single day and bring up to 5 guests every visit. Get yours now at topgolf.com/funpass.
Hey, it's Erin Andrews from Calm Down with Erin and Krissa. I don't know about your house, but at my house, everybody's online. They're streaming, gaming, shopping, Zoom calls, you name it. That's why having fast, reliable internet that can keep up really matters and why you need Optimum's famously fast fiber internet. It blows flaky 5G home internet out of the water. It has the fastest and most reliable internet speeds and doesn't slow down when everyone's online, which, let's be honest, is all the time. Right now, they have a deal that's tough to beat, just $25 a month for 5 years. So don't wait. Call 888-4-OPTIMUM. Visit Optimum.com or stop by your local Optimum store today. Famously fast fiber for $25 a month for 5 years. That's a no-brainer. Terms apply. See Optimum.com for details.
JJ, have you had any serious conversations with your kids of late?
Yeah, you know, my daughter is getting to the age where there's, you know, some friend stuff she's got to deal with, as we all did in elementary school, and, you know, sitting down talking to her about that. How about you?
Yeah, last week was one of those situations where I had to sit my son down and deliver some really difficult news. They were learning about the solar system in TK, and I had to regretfully inform him that Pluto is no longer a planet.
I'm JJ, and over the last couple of years, I've been doing everything I can to be a best ball bro. And last season, things finally fell into place. I got 40th in the DraftKings Millie contest, taking home $20,000. Maybe I became a best ball bro, but I'm still looking to learn more about this game. And I still want others to come on this ride with me. So even if you consider me a best ball bro, this could be your year. This could be the year that you officially become a best ball bro. This episode is sponsored by DraftKings. We've partnered up with DraftKings again this year for Best Ball, and we've got a can't-miss offer on their biggest Best Ball contest ever. $20 million in total prizes. It's draft one, get one. Draft your team once, no weekly lineup management, and your top scorers start automatically each week, all season long. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app and sign up with promo code LATEROUND. Enter a lineup in the $20 million Best Ball contest for $25 and get a bonus ticket for a second entry. 2 shots at the title. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Welcome into another episode of Becoming a Best Ball Bro. I'm JJ Zacharies, and joined, as always, by Rich Ryan. Rich, the Knicks are down 2-1, but how you feeling? Or sorry, up 2-1 now. Sorry.
But it feels like it. Look, it feels
as
like
a lifelong Knicks fan, who experienced a Knicks victory in New York City last weekend, it was an honest mistake there.
Vibes were off last night at the stadium. Game seemed like it was out of control, and this is one of those where game 4 now is if you go up 2-0 and then you lose 2 at home, like the vibes are all the way in the dumpster. So we're hanging on tight. We're used to being faced with the worst situations possible as New York sports fans, the non-Yankee New York sports fans amongst us. Yeah. So we're prepared for the worst, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean it would be crazy, but I mean they kept it close. It wasn't like a blowout last night, you know.
That's the scary thing on both ends, is that the first 2 games were close and we edged it out. Every game has been close, so the neutral is very much enjoying this final so far.
Yes. But look, this is not a basketball podcast. This is a football podcast. I'm back from my trip with the guys over the weekend in New York City. We went to basically every bureau. We were all over the map on that trip. I was just telling Rich about it before. we started recording, but it's good to be back. It's good to not have to take the subway. It's good to be able to, relax a little bit, lay out in my suburban home, and not have to deal with the chaos of the millions and millions of people that are around that city. Shout out to New York City, though. I had a great time. Let's talk about best ball. Let's talk about fantasy football. I fortunately had all my slows done before my trip. I had like 60 slows going at the time. Now I'm back in it, doing some slows, hopping in some millies. We're going to be doing some live streams on the YouTube channel starting this week and all summer long. But nice. I do want to talk about some watch outs. This intro part, we have a guest on today's show. If you guys are new to becoming a best ball bro, we do a little bit of an intro. We just kind of talk about what we're seeing within the best ball landscape at the moment. And I came up with 4 things that I want to talk about as like call outs, watch outs of what I'm seeing at the moment. And I'm curious if others agree or disagree. But the first one I want to say, I was thinking about this last night because I have not drafted a ton of 0 RB teams so far this year, like a ton, like at least compared to what we were doing a couple of years ago, right? As I was drafting a Millie team yesterday, I took Jamar Chase 103, and then I'm like, oh, maybe this will be a 0 RB team. And then Derrick Henry just was there for me in the second round, so I got Derrick Henry. But one thing I was thinking of is that or when you kind of set and you go towards a 0 RB build, let's say that you get, let's say Drake London falls in the second after you get Jackson Smith and Jigba or something, and then you get Drake London, and then Nico Collins falls in the third, and then you're in that pocket of really good wide receivers in the fourth, and you want to get another wide receiver in that case. One thing that I think is really important is to make sure you get like a Lamar Jackson type quarterback. And the reason I say that is because if you're going wide receiver heavy, you obviously are going to need to get probably 7 running backs or so. If you do not get the running back position in the first 5 rounds or 4 rounds, you're going to probably want to get 7 running backs in your team. And you're going to be looking at that like round 8 to round 10 into 11 range for some of those, but the Kenny Gainwells of the world. And if you're doing that, and if you're really pinpoint, you need the flexibility to not feel forced to go quarterback, because that is the quarterback green zone in best ball right now. I think that things are going to look a lot different in season long. And honestly, the way this is kind of a tangent, but the way that people are talking about season, like fantasy football for 2026 feels a little bit off right now, because everyone's like, oh, running backs are being drafted so much earlier this year than last year. But if you actually look at season long ADP year over year, even looking back, over the last 10 years and just seeing the trends, it's not that different. Like, it's really not that substantially different. I would argue even on DraftKings, I haven't really laid it out, but I don't think it's like so drastically different that all of a sudden, everyone is going with an early round running back approach. I think we started to see it a little bit last year, because 2024 was a pretty good year for the position and the way that things kind of came together. And then people were reacting to it last year. And then last year, the running back position was also good. And so people are going to continue doing that. There's a lot of reasons for that. But regardless, if you're not getting those running backs early, I do think it's pretty vital to get a quarterback of some sort early, because you're going to get stuck in that run of quarterbacks where you're going to wish you had one, because the position just dries up so fast, and you're going to be looking at running backs in that range.
Yeah, the running backs that you're talking about there with Monangai, Blake Corum, Kenny Gainwell, Brooks, and Dobbins in that area are also 9 quarterbacks from the 8-9 turn down. So yeah, if you're planning your stacks, or if you haven't selected a quarterback already and you're also trying to balance that 0 RB approach, you're going to have a hard time fulfilling everything and being satisfied with your roster.
That's why I think it's like that's another piece of 0 RB that I think is a little bit more difficult this year that's not necessarily being talked about. Is just like the way the board falls doesn't necessarily allow you to do that very confidently, just because of quarterback in particular. Like literally, because if the later round quarterbacks, like we've been talking about for the last year and a half, if they keep getting pushed up, then obviously, those players are, it dries up a lot faster. And if you are drafting running backs in that range, then that can definitely screw you. I have a second thing I want to bring up. I have 4 things here, kind of 3, we'll call it 3.5. But number 2, we're seeing these like ambiguous injuries going on right now. Let's just use Chris Rodriguez as the example, where he has this foot issue that's been happening. And now there's reports that he's not going to be practicing or like doing work on his foot until training camp, or they're like expecting him back training camp time frame. The effect I've noticed anecdotally is that I don't think that drafters always look at that beyond that one player. So like, of course, Chris Rodriguez's ADP is likely dropping as a result of all of this. But the interesting thing is that, yes, you'll see maybe a little bit of Bashal Tutin, but like, I haven't seen an instant at all where LaQuinn Allen is seeing a dramatic increase in ADP. Now, a lot of people sit there and say that LaQuinn Allen is not the same kind of running back as Chris Rodriguez is, which I would completely agree. They play two completely different roles on that team. However, it's different in best ball than in season long. I think this is where one of those differences lies, where in best ball, you do kind of just want, especially DraftKings where it's full PPR. I draft LaQuinn Allen because I think that he can have some usable weeks here and there as a pass catcher in a full PPR format. You know, it's the same argument that we had with like Justice Hill historically. Like you can even make the argument for Justice Hill this year. But with LaQuinn Allen, if we were playing season long and Chris Rodriguez were to get hurt, the waiver wire / recommendation stuff would be like, I mean, not that Bashal Tutin would be on the waiver wire, but like analysts would be sitting there saying, hey, Bashal Tutin RB1 season, you know, all the, and they'd meme it up and whatever. And I'd be all for it because I'm a Bashal Tutin guy. But the thing that we wouldn't really care about that much is probably LaQuinn Allen in that case in a season long league, because LaQuinn Allen would be playing a very similar role that he would be playing otherwise, which is that like pass catcher, or, you know, we're projecting here, but like that pass catcher role, what have you. There would be, though, a slight uptick in his overall volume in that offense if Chris Rodriguez were to be out, because they don't really have an RB3 to rely on at this moment. You know, they would maybe bring someone up from the practice squad, or maybe they'd sign someone if it was long-term, whatever the case may be. But LaQuinn Allen would probably see like a 10% uptick, 10 percentage point uptick in early down work, let's say, or you know, rush share. And so if that's the case, we don't care about that in season long, because he goes from someone who's really a volatile player that we don't know when that's going to hit to all of a sudden being maybe a little bit less volatile, but still pretty volatile, right? But in best ball, that could give you a little bit more of an edge because you're not having to predict that, right? The reason we wouldn't want to go after a LaQuinn Allen in season long is because we're not going to predict when that big game happens. But in best ball, we don't have to worry about that. So my overall stance here, and like the reason I'm bringing this up, is that if there is an ambiguous injury going on and there hasn't been that much of like a chain reaction to that injury with the other players in that backfield or in that wide receiver room, whatever the case may be, backfield is a lot easier to make that tie because, you know, they're just given work as opposed to wide receivers, tight ends having to get open and get a target, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's an opportunity to get CLV. Even if it's not even CLV, even if it's just value in general that you get, because maybe his ADP doesn't rise or change. But eventually, you know, if Chris Rodriguez is like confirmed out through August or something, LaQuinn Allen would probably have like a 17th round ADP or something. Like he would be higher than a last round, sometimes not even drafted type pick.
Yeah, he hasn't budged at all, whereas Chris Rodriguez has dropped half a round, down 5 spots. Yeah. And you're right, the difference with best ball is we get the luxury of enjoying smoothed out projectable volume over the season, as opposed to hoping this is the week in season long that LaQuinn Allen gets action.
Yeah. And then the last thing I want to point out, and this kind of goes hand in hand, but if there are free agents out there who have a backbone of being productive and good and like not on the tail end of their career or anything like that, we had Keenan Allen last year. We saw his ADP rise by a few rounds after he signed with the Chargers, which a lot of people didn't even think was a good landing spot for him. You know, like right now we're staring at Stephon Diggs and he is a firm double-digit round pick. I'm talking like 12th, 13th round type player on DraftKings. And if he signs almost anywhere, it's the odds of him signing for like a semi-contender are pretty high, probably. You know, like a Washington or a Kansas City or something like that. And if that's the case, his ADP is going to rise by like 2 rounds, at least, more than likely, similar to what we saw with Keenan Allen. And then analysts talk themselves into that player more and more because they realized there was a reason that team went out and got that player. And so you can get that. That's a pure CLV play. Like you can right now with Stephon Diggs, I do believe firmly, and it's not going to work out 100% of the time, but I do believe firmly that Stephon Diggs is someone that people should be targeting and drafting more frequently than they probably are. just because we're going to see that uptick. Now, if this were August and he wasn't on a team or we didn't, it's not as big of a deal. I think it's a bigger deal right now in a Millie contest where, we're drafting in May and June, and the same contest is still opened in August where people are going to be drafting. And by the time August hits, Stephon Diggs could be a 9th round pick.
That's a really good distinction, right? This isn't one of those short contests that is going to fill quickly. The difference is we're looking to target these longer contests with longer draft windows, because you're right. There isn't a single player with an FA tag on them in DraftKings that is going before Stephon Diggs in the 12th round. And you've got Tyreek Hill dropping half a round. Yeah, there's just value to be had here.
You could even argue Brandon Ayuk right now, which is crazy, but I think Ayuk is a little bit different for obvious reasons. So, you don't have to go ham if you don't really like putting that into your portfolio. I personally don't mind doing that. Like I've been drafting Ayuk because, like even if he's not 100% there, for part, I don't know. I think that you're just playing expected value and probability at that point. Like what are the odds that he does not play at all this year? Maybe you feel that it's like 80%. I think it's more 50-50 at worst, that he isn't playing this year just because, like he's still talented. And I saw a pretty good take about this with Ayuk and the 49ers. Like if there were real problems with his game, the 49ers would have just released him. They would have, like, it would be a done deal at this point. Like he wouldn't be, being hung on by the 49ers to get some sort of trade value. I don't know. There's a lot to it. Don't hold me to that take. I just think that it's an interesting way of sort of thinking about it and, analyzing that situation.
But also, this is the distinction that you just made about the difference between receivers and running backs, where receivers earn their usage through talent for most of the part, whereas running backs, the coach kind of decides who gets usage. And we're talking about some talented dudes, no matter what you think of Diggs, Tyreek, and Ayuk. They're talented guys. So if they land in a spot, they're not going to be stuck with a coach's decision as to whether or not they get usage. They're going to be running routes and likely earning targets.
Yeah, I mean, in this bucket, which is why I said 3.5, we've now learned officially through this AJ Brown ordeal, but also we saw it last year. I remember with Jordan Addison, where we knew something was going to happen from a suspension standpoint, and yet, like, I remember I wasn't drafting him until that suspension was handed out because I knew his ADP would fall, and it did. Like, it fell by about a round after that happened. AJ Brown, I will say, I was not aggressive enough in getting him before the news to New England, because I thought that where he was being drafted was a fair enough, reasonable enough ADP based on, the age curve, the trajectory of his career, like what happened last year, all while recognizing that he really wasn't that bad last year. It was probably overstated of him, like, being total dust. But I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, there's some good players being drafted around him. I can understand why his ADP is where it's at, assuming that everyone knows that he's going to New England. Well, no, this is also probably a segue into the ADP stuff, because AJ Brown is seeing his ADP increase and has seen that over the last week or two.
Yeah, so I like to take a snapshot of the week over week ADP risers and fallers, and AJ Brown is one of the top 7 risers, up a half a round, now at pick 19.
And that's early rounds too, to be fair.
That was the point I was going to bring up, especially in the faller section. There's a lot of double digits here. Like, some of these value changes are very small right now, right? There hasn't been massive news, massive injuries. There's not a lot of shifts. So to see that in the second round, right, up from the third round to the second, it's hard to overstate how large of a move that is.
I think part of the AJ Brown stuff too is obviously Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, Josh Jacobs, like players that have had these like off the field type stuff going on / injury stuff going on. And so naturally it's like, oh, this is AJ Brown's actually a more stable piece than those players are. So therefore I'll draft him. I just can't get behind drafting him over Drake London, which I've seen multiple times. Like I'm not quite there. I'm not even lower than AJ Brown versus like ADP. It's just I'm not going to be higher on AJ Brown if that's what being higher means, than ADP.
The 3 receivers that have moved more than AJ Brown in the positive direction, they all kind of fit the same archetype. AD Mitchell, Trey Harris, and Dontavian Wicks, guys who can stretch the field, guys who can get downfield, and the market seems to be latching onto them right now, JT.
Yeah, I've been drafting a ton of AD Mitchell all off season. I wasn't an AD Mitchell guy when he came out. I think that he's kind of even exceeded my expectations in a way, even though it sounds backwards because he was traded and, but he's been very good per route run. And I think there's a very real chance when you look at what the Jets have at wide receiver in particular, Garrett Wilson can play everywhere, but I think Garrett Wilson realistically could probably thrive most in like a Z role in that offense, right? Or in any offense. But he can play X. Like he's extremely talented. But Adonai Mitchell is an X receiver. Like that is what that's where he should be playing. And Omar Cooper is very much more than likely like slot, can probably play perimeter enough. But like, if you look at those three guys, I think that that's kind of the role that they would be playing. And AD Mitchell, if that's the case, would have a role in that offense. And then I think there were some reports this week that were favorable for Mitchell, that like they see him as like a featured piece in the offense or what have you. I think it's just one of those classic cases of like assuming a player is just bounced completely from an offense because they drafted an earlier round wide receiver. But I think Omar Cooper was a good prospect. I don't think, close your ears, Rich. I don't think he was like a phenomenal prospect, right? Very interesting profile, but more of like there is an out here where like part of Omar Cooper's game in the NFL is more gadgety than it is pure traditional wide receiver. Not to say that's what it all would be, but I think that's why AD Mitchell's kind of attractive. Like I've been drafting AD Mitchell. Trey Harris being listed on there makes a ton of sense to me because, they're going to run a lot of these, they're going to run a lot less 11 personnel with Mike McDaniel. And obviously that means Ladd McConkey, in my opinion, is going to see a higher concentration of targets just because he'll be the lone wide receiver on the field at times or one of two. And I think Quentin Johnston should be the number two, like in your priority list. But Trey Harris, some positive vibes and buzz, but what if he takes a step forward? It's not like Quentin Johnston's been undeniable throughout his career, so Trey Harris is a great late round pick, been doing that a lot. Part of it too is because I've been just drafting the Chargers. And then Dontavian Wicks, that's fine. It's a little interesting that he's risen a little bit, but it's mostly, I think, a little bit of noise just because he's going so late to begin with.
And of course, again, people waiting until the official drop of the
I mean, it's crazy, right? Like it's crazy. It's crazy. I just didn't think because you looked at Dontavian Wicks before and you're like, no one likes Dontavian Wicks. Why would his ADP change? And then, it's changed post AJ Brown leaving. And I was drafting Wicks, to be honest with you, before more so like pre-draft. And obviously they get Lemon and Stowers and stuff. But I think Wicks is another one of those players where not to the same degree as AD Mitchell, because I think Lemon is better than Cooper. And I think AD Mitchell is better than Wicks, right? So it's it's not a 1-to-1 at all, but it is a 1-to-1 from the standpoint of there is a new rookie wide receiver stepping in and there's a more established, if you will, at least, non-rookie that was already there. And let's not assume that the non-rookie is just completely dust. 3
other players up a half round. 2 of them mentioned last week. JJ, moving markets. It's Greg Dulcich, Alvin Kamara, and Sean Tucker.
Yeah, we're not gonna run with that one, but look, Dulcich. Dulcich also got some good vibes after our show. Not from anything that I said, but like there was the report. I think Omar Kelly had it where, so take it with a grain of salt. But Omar Kelly had it and said that he looked like Malik Willis's favorite target at one point. And then, Sean Tucker, it could just be a Bucky Irving related thing too, that there's just been negative vibes around that. And then Alvin Kamara is kind of interesting because a lot of it is, I guess it's like the people thinking that he's not going to retire now instead of retiring or something based on the fact that he's like in shape and he might be playing for the Saints or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I can understand that. I still think Kamara is a trade candidate. I think that there's a possibility that maybe like Jacksonville goes after him with the Chris Rodriguez stuff.
I feel like everybody is very bullish on the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, what could go wrong, right? I mean, I'm bullish. I'm excited about. I love drafting Tyler Shuck and Jordan Tyson, and I'm not as into Olave, but I get it. Like I think it's a very concentrated target tree, and that's part of the allure for me. I haven't drafted much ETN, I will say that, but I do think that it's a concentrated tree, and therefore, and it's a fast-paced offense, and it's a year 2 quarterback, and so I get the allure, and I've definitely fallen victim of that a little bit.
Thank you for calling him ETN, by the way. I'm not changing. Nobody's going to make me change.
It's too hard. Honestly, I was having a discussion with my buddies this weekend, and I'm like, Yeah, I can't do the Travis Achan thing on shows because it's just going to confuse everybody. And I'm just going to be answering questions, after the show's published. So I just am keeping ETN for the time being until it's more overall generally accepted.
ADP fallers, a pair of Packers running backs in Chris Brooks and Marshawn Lloyd. Everybody ran to the draft room thinking that Josh Jacobs was going to be barred from football because of his off-field activities. But like we've seen previously, Rashee Rice, etc., Jordan Addison, these things, the can tends to get kicked down the road with these things, JJ. So I think those overreactions weren't warranted.
The only thing is that he could still get arrested. Like he could still go to jail for these things seemingly. I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, I basically, I still think it's a volatile situation, but obviously the regular standard drafter is just saying, he's not in jail right now, so we don't have to draft his backups.
And then at receiver, people didn't listen to us last week. We keep talking about Brandon Ayuk and Kayshon Boutte. People are afraid of these guys that in Boutte's case is kind of stuck down in the depth chart in New England. And then the ambiguity around Ayuk has got people freaked out.
Yeah, I think I'm still cool with drafting either of these guys. I think there's even if Kayshon Boutte stays in New England, he could have usable weeks every once in a while because he's proven to make big plays in the way that they deploy him, right? And that I don't think that he should be deployed that way, as a player, but regardless, if they deploy him as a down the field player, he can make and generate big plays. But I still think there's an out here where Washington goes after him and Washington could go after Ayuk or maybe Kansas City or something. I mean, there's places for these guys to go where their situations would improve. I'm not as bullish on a Boutte as I would be a Stephon Diggs seeing his ADP rise. But I think there's a chance that if Boutte gets traded in 90% of spots, he'd probably see his ADP rise.
And then one more relevant follower. Joe Milton was a fall. I don't know what's going on there. I guess people got excited about Joe Milton. But Mike Washington Jr. Out of Vegas, the rookie running back who his peripherals were very interesting. So I was surprised to see him drop. I don't know. I might just be ignorant to some news that came out with regards to
I think it's just I think Kubiak talking about being okay with leaning on Genti is what that really comes down to. I mean, Mike Washington for me was an iffy-ish prospect. Didn't have the most amazing production profile. Wasn't terrible. Clearly very, very athletic. And that 40 time. Without that 40 time, I don't even know if he gets drafted. He's at least a late day 3 guy. So, is his profile amazing? No. Are we really overly excited about a backup in a Vegas offense the way, I don't know. I love what Kubiak is going to probably do to the offense. And I think he's the right kind of mind and coach for what they have right now, personnel wise. I can kind of understand going after Mike Washington, but if you're going to go after pure handcuffs, I think there's plenty of others that you can at least get excited about to not be so overweight on one random handcuff.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I'm very much Kubiak build. He took something called Holani and turned him into a usable asset in the playoffs. So I believe in Kubiak.
Kubiak's good. I've been a Kubiak guy for sure, even when he was in New Orleans, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that the offense should be much more improved, in Vegas. I think Genti's a pretty solid pick at the 1-2 turn. It's just, I just don't know if Mike Washington is that good. Those are the risers and fallers in ADP right now. Like I said, I do have a guest. That guest being Mr. Pat Kerrane, who's kicked off this show as the first guest for the first 2 seasons that we did. He's of legendary upside. He co-hosts Ship Chasing. He's had a ton of best ball success. We talk about the changing landscape in best ball right now, when to take the onesie positions, quarterback and tight end, late round picks because the late rounds kind of suck, and so much more. So without further ado, here is my interview with Mr. Pat Kerrane. All right, Pat, first question. As you look at this best ball landscape right now, specifically over on DraftKings, what's one of the biggest difference that you're seeing year over year? Or I mean, you could be looking at this landscape and thinking that it's the same, but what are you seeing overall, and if there is a change year over year?
Well, one thing is, this year we have a different rookie class than last year, and there's some strengths and weaknesses, mostly weaknesses compared to last year's rookie class. And I think that changes things up in some pretty big ways for this year's landscape in best ball. Rookies, have been a pretty big part, especially rookie receivers, have been like a pretty big edge in best ball leagues over the years. And so, I think you're seeing a couple things. One, the rookie running backs, there's a couple first rounders that go reasonably high. And I think both guys are interesting picks. I like Jeremiah Love more at ADP, but then you get past those guys and it really dries up. And we're talking, a lot of day 3 type of guys that here in June are hard to know for sure if we're going to get anything from this year. And not having interesting rookie upside swings in, let's say outside the top 6 rounds definitely shakes things up a bit. And then at wide receiver, I think some of the stink of the rookie class from a dynasty perspective has translated over to the best ball market. And I actually think there's some values at rookie wide receiver this year where they're a little bit cheaper than we've had over the past couple years. So those guys to me are actually targets. A number of them are pretty clear targets at cheaper prices than we've had recently, where rookie wide receivers have kind of had some inflation compared to where they used to go like 4 or 5 years ago.
With this rookie class, because I'll kind of skip ahead to another question that I wanted to ask you, but I think it's pretty pertinent and kind of ties into it. When I'm drafting right now, I'm looking at the late rounds and I feel awful about almost every player that is available in the late rounds of these drafts. My question to you is, do you think that this is a normal feeling that I feel every year and I've forgotten, and this is not any different than what we typically see? Or do you think that it is a weaker late round, round 18, round 19, round 20 type group than we've historically seen? And again, we have to give this context that we're doing this in June, where I think probably in July and August, we'll have at least some better idea of some situations and stuff like that. And players and the roles that they're going to play. And maybe we feel better about some more later round darts. Maybe you don't even feel this way at all, but do you think the rookie class is playing a huge role in that feeling that I'm feeling?
100% the rookie class is factoring in there. I mean, last year at the end of the summer, like final weeks of drafts, Kyle Monangai started popping as, a pretty strong pick. And he remained available in like the 18th, 19th, 20th round on DraftKings. He was a 7th round pick. So it took a while for us to view him as a reasonable click. But I mean, it's hard for me to even see like who that would be, because like Kerrane Allen would probably be a comparable type of player. Well, Kerrane Allen's already getting drafted.
Right.
He's not available in those rounds now. So there's just not as many guys. Now, we were taking Jarquez Hunter. We were taking DJ Giddens. There were a bunch of landmines too. Sure. But it was the rookie class, the depth of the running back class did make it easier to kind of dream on these picks. And then also to ultimately find a couple of these guys who mattered, even if it took a while to kind of realize that Monangai was the best of the bunch in those final rounds. But yeah, I mean, I think there's also some NFL personnel shift stuff going on here a little bit, where we are seeing like more 2 tight end sets, more teams talking about how, the Jaguars talking about playing more 12. It's like, come on, man. I know. You've got 4
what
receivers.
Are you doing to us?
Yeah. Like Nate Borkachers, I got to worry about that.
Yeah.
So it's, you get down and you're like, what receivers can I just buy routes on? I think those guys, the depth of that kind of group of players is also probably a little thinner now than it was a couple years ago. And I think part of it is like, yeah, it isn't that fun always to, in the 19th round like that. That is not a high hit rate kind of group.
Sure.
And we probably have memory wiped some of the disgusting picks we were making over the past 3-4 years. But yeah, I mean, I'm taking more tight ends in those final rounds.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way to kind of, especially, I am considering on my streams just having like a rolling banner that says it's June, because like there's like, so like it used to be that like Scott Fishbowl kind of kicked things off and of the redraft. Like this was dynasty season. Like this was carved. We were sending trades. We're not really drafted.
We could relax a minute in June.
Yeah. And so that has changed. Like we're talking like definitively about the structures of teams in 2026 for, the entire offseason in the early part of June. And I think things will change. We're all so much more dialed in than we were like in 2019, this time of year, that it doesn't it's like hard to remember that how much things can change and probably will change. So the late rounds will look different as we get more information. But for now, taking some of these tight ends, it does feel like a way where you're not just like completely punting and taking a zero. And you're like, maybe like with Eli Stowers, I probably am buying routes, particularly at the end of the season. His ADP is around 200 on DraftKings, right? So it's like you get late, and I'll take that fourth tight end who's probably going to be running routes at the end of the season. I'll take a stab on one of the Rams committee tight end guys. They're going to play a bunch of tight ends. We know that. So, Michael Mayer probably plays some. You can get into this. Charlie Kolar I've started to consider a little bit. Like, is it, purely as kind of a 20th round guy? He's a name on my mind. I'm not hammering him, but Mike Gesicki I've taken a lot of. Yeah. Because I think he's on a good offense. He'll run routes. It's going to be part-time. He'll spike for a couple weeks, but it's the same type of profile that you would have had probably a little bit more cheaply with some of these wide receivers that are harder to find once you get to the final rounds. And then I am taking, though, as I alluded to earlier, some of these rookie wide receivers. I still think those guys are underpriced. And you can get, even in the final rounds, you can get a Chris Brazzell. You can get the Jacoby Lane, Elijah Surratt, one or both those guys. If you want, you can get Zachariah Branch. There's a bunch of those rookie wide receivers that are still, Jeremy Bernard is still, he's more expensive than that. He's in the 180s, but he's pretty cheap for a second round pick. Right. So there's, once you get, not the final rounds, but late in the draft, those rookie wide receivers definitely pop too.
Well, with the tight ends, this is kind of, I feel like made me not go as hard at elite tight end right now is the fact that because the latter parts of the draft are, I should say more so McBride than Bowers, to be fair, but like, because the latter parts of the draft are set up the way they're set up, where I feel relatively decent about like Terrence Ferguson having a role this year, like doing something at some point, right? And like being a tight end 3 or 4, even 4, right? Because I'll if I'm waiting a decent, or like Pat Freiermuth or someone like that, where like
or Darnell Washington.
Sure. They're, and it's because of, like you said, the way the NFL has evolved, the way it's changed, and you're able to at least capture that position in that way. But then you're staring at like Brock Bowers, who could clearly go nuclear this year. Yep. You're staring at Trey McBride coming off the season that he had. Even Colson Loveland, you can make a very easy pro argument for. So what's been your approach at tight end? Has it been like, okay, I'm in round 2, I'm going to just draft Bowers and then obviously adjust, as I go? Or is it like, hey, I know that the way the landscape looks right now is that there's a lot of ambiguity in those late rounds where I'm probably going to just get tight end. So maybe I'm going to lean running back wide receiver instead in round 2 and not go after one of these guys, and then maybe get some of exposure to those guys later on in the year. Has that been a thought process, or has it just been like, no, I think Bowers is going to smash, I'm going to draft Brock Bowers?
Yeah, I think this question kind of goes to like, with best ball, there's sort of are you evaluating like what has worked in the past versus trying to be forward looking and what will work given a brand new set of ADPs that apply to this specific player pool that we're only going to get one shot at this offseason. And this is where we have a tool at Leg Up called the Sidekick it's a sim driven player recommendation tool. And we're able to evaluate things like what is available now versus what of it is available later by simming out the NFL season and then also the contest that you're in. And what we're seeing, honestly, is that like Bowers, the fact that these tight ends are available later does not mean that you need to avoid Bowers. And in fact, when you have Bowers, you do not need to limit yourself to 2 tight ends. Yeah. Like if you get to the final rounds and it's like, there aren't any good players left, but there's some tight ends who could hit your lineup, you should probably take those tight ends. Yeah. It might be the case that you have extra roster spots as well if you went with a build that's like 4 or 5 total running backs where you got some running backs early. I don't think you necessarily need 11 wide receivers even on full PPR in 20 rounds on DraftKings. Like you can have 9 wide receivers. You can have, 3, maybe even 4 tight ends, depending on where your tight end 2 came with a Brock Bowers or Trey McBride or Colson Loveland or Tyler Warren or whatever. Like you can still build in some depth at that position if the opportunity cost at the other positions is pretty low. And if you have, I think particularly if you have running back covered with kind of a hyper fragile build,
Sure.
Where you've got at least a couple early kind of hammers.
Yeah. Have you gone after Bowers more than McBride so far? Like, has that been?
I prefer Bowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, his quarterback situation, I feel better about because we're probably looking at rookies in both teams in the money weeks of these tournaments. And Mendoza's a better prospect than Beck.
Yeah.
And then you have, you've got Clint Kubiak, who literally just powered his whole offense through, like, hyper concentrated through his one elite pass catcher. And that very clearly is Brock Bowers on this new team. And then, in the beginning of the season, if we do get a veteran, I feel as good, if not better, about, Cousins compared to Brissett, given this whole, holdout sort of thing that, and Brissett got there a lot on volume last year, though I'm not sure he necessarily has with the new coaching staff. So, and ultimately, I think Mendoza plays pretty early on in the season.
Yeah, I would agree there. It feels like analysts are piling on Trey McBride to a degree right now, but I think there's some reason for it. Like, there's definitely touchdown regression that'll likely come, which is crazy to say, right? Because McBride was not that guy. But
I know, it's hilarious.
Like his end zone target number, I think it was like 18 or something last year, which is wild at tight end. That just does not happen frequently at all. Like, I think that's been one of the biggest epiphanies for me. This is kind of a tangent, but like one of the biggest epiphanies for me with regression analysis is that a lot of people look at the expected numbers and they almost, like Matthew Stafford last year. Stafford throws 46 touchdown passes, but he had an expected touchdown number of like 42 or 43, depending on like the formula you're using, which really isn't like outperforming touchdown expectation by like an obscene amount, right? But we shouldn't assume that he can get to that expected touchdown number year over year, right?
That also will probably regress.
Exactly. So like there's the problem with the expected numbers that we always like use and reference is that, like, I think that they're often better in season than they are out of season, because in season you're not going to see as many game plan shifts and you can really spot regression that way. Whereas out of season, like, things can change dramatically. Like we're seeing in Arizona right now, where we don't even know if what the deal is with Jacoby Brissett. We don't know when he'll be starting. And I think that we feel confident that towards the end of the year, again, the money weeks, he won't be starting for that team. And they obviously got by last year in fantasy from a volume perspective. And they were the top team in pass attempts last year. And there's just a lot of like question marks and ambiguity. Whereas like everything else with Brock Bowers is just seemingly pointed up, right? Like it just seems like it's gone in a much more favorable direction.
I agree with what you just said. And it's one reason that I like players who are efficient, because who generally is efficient, good players. Right. And I recognize that if someone is insanely efficient, that they'll probably regress. Like, I don't expect Dalton Kincaid to have like 2.7 yards per route run or whatever if he runs a lot more routes, which I would like him to do if I'm betting on Kincaid. That probably drops. But he's got 1.79 career yards per route run. He's probably pretty good. So the efficiency part of it is something I do want to consider in a positive way, as opposed to just betting on that volume. And I think Brissett wasn't bad last year from an efficiency standpoint, but so much of the production really was volume driven. And with a new coaching staff, I don't feel confident that we get really high drop back volume there. And I don't think we'll get really high drop back volume in Las Vegas, to be clear. I don't think we'll have probably low drop back volume, but just the target concentration from Clint Kubiak in a well-designed, type of passing game that's looking to punish defenses for overplaying the run and run the ball a lot to make them overplay the run and then play action off of that. I mean, Bowers is a perfect fit for that. Like a play action weapon, like that's his whole deal.
Right.
So, and then like Trey Tucker, they're talking up, who was a pretty good pick early on. He was very cheap. He's moved up a bit. And they're moving him around the formation. He's kind of clearly the number one wide receiver there right now. Probably Jack Besh or Deontay Thornton are figuring it out as their wide receiver too. Like, we often talk about hey, it's actually pretty good when there's tight ends on the field for the wide receivers, because that lowers their target competition. This is like the rare case where it's the opposite, where the tight.
Yeah, give me Jack Besh over Michael Mayer, please. Yeah, if I'm drafting Jalen Naylor or like Trey Tucker or something, like I'd much rather Jack Besh be on the field than
100%. Yeah. So I mean, Bowers is actually benefiting from how bad the receivers are there as well. So yeah, I mean Bowers. I mean, and he, just an elite prospect, great rookie year, struggled through an injury last year, was still fairly productive, all things considered, and is set up for the potential for him to go nuclear is what has me on Bowers over McBride. And ADP has followed that now.
It has now,
you'd be going against the market if you went McBride first.
For adults with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms, every choice matters. Tremfya offers self-injection or intravenous infusion from the start. Tremfya is administered as injections under the skin or infusions through a vein every 4 weeks, followed by injections under the skin every 4 or 8 weeks. If your doctor decides that you can self-inject Tremfya, proper training is required. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
This is Tab Ramos from Inside American Soccer, and this summer, Topgolf is turning into the ultimate soccer destination. They're not just throwing games on in the background. Topgolf is going all in on soccer. They've got a new soccer-themed game you can play with your group, special in-venue activations, exclusive food and drink items inspired by the global game, and at more than 60 locations, they've even installed full-size soccer goals so you can try to hit golf balls right into the net. And every match all summer long will be on throughout the venue. So it's a great place to watch with friends, hang out, compete a little bit, and enjoy the atmosphere. And if you want to keep the fun going all summer, you can get the Topgolf Summer Fun Pass, which lets you play every single day and bring up to 5 guests every visit. Get yours now at topgolf.com/funpass. Summer hits different at Topgolf.
Let's talk about those early rounds though, because the meta, I'd say. So here's the thing. I've been doing a lot of like season-long analysis for the draft guide, for the late round draft guide. And I do think that especially within our like circle, like the strategy talk about fantasy football is very much dominated by best ball as opposed to season long. And so there's a lot of talk right now about how like things are so different with the amount of running backs that people are drafting early and such. But if you look at season long ADP and you look at like how many running backs have been drafted in round 1, top 12, top 24, top 36, top 48, top 60, year over year, over the last few years, there's maybe 1 or 2 more that we're seeing this year versus like previous years, which really shouldn't dramatically change a narrative. Like it really shouldn't like drastically change the way that we're viewing things. But in best ball, I do think that it's different from 2 perspectives. One being, yes, there are maybe some more running backs being drafted early, but also I think that the talking heads too, like the people who are giving analysis and talking about the game are being more comfortable drafting running backs with their first few picks and just going running back heavy. And we're like back to that, meta, if you will, that we were doing when like during the MFL 10 years back in the day, like this was the way that like I remember Mike Beers, who was very into the best ball game, was all about the 3 running back be done kind of build that I think is much more popular today than it was 3 or 4 years ago, and that's just the way that this is all transpired. So I guess my question to you is, as a result of that, we often know that we should be zigging when people are zagging. Is this a year then that we should be looking to go 0 RB, or like maybe even saying like, is it a year that we should have that more frequently than the market in our portfolio?
Yeah. So I guess on the kind of the concept of like the running backs, because the narrative is sort of like, full boomer capitulation, guys like me aren't doing 0 running back. We're doing, hyper fragile more often. Or, in my case, I'm doing it a lot more often than I'm going 0 running back this year. And I guess like what I would kind of push back on that narrative is that like, if you look back at, I wrote an article just looking at the rookie wide receiver pricing. And as part of that, I was looking, because the rookie wide receiver has been on all the winning Best Ball Mania teams so far. And so I pulled those teams up, and it's like, hey, you know, the wide receiver 2 here was like pick 14. Like in this, you know, in like Liam Murphy's winning draft, it's like it was literally pick 14 that we didn't see the second wide receiver come off the board. And this is still like a super different environment than that environment. Like the idea that there is something happening, which is that people like me who have traditionally really liked to go zero running back aren't going zero running back as often and are mixing in builds that where we take more running backs in the first, you know, 5 rounds than we used to. But it's not the same thing as the ADP has shifted to the point where all these running backs are going super high again. Right. And I think that's the big thing that people are kind of like conflating, where if the prices haven't shifted that much overall in terms of like where the wide receivers go. I mean, we're seeing Chase, JSN, Puka, Jefferson, Lamb, Amon-Ra, always basically going in the first 9-ish picks. Right. You know, 9, 10 picks. They're gone. Maybe get lucky, get CD at 11 or something. But at the end of round 1, those 6 wide receivers are gone. And so it's not like it's not just those MFL 10 days. It was just green. It's green. Yes. There might be one wide receiver. You're into RB2s by the middle of round 2. Like you're deep into RB2s. So that's where, you know, I think actually you have to look at the rest of this year's player landscape. And it's not just that this rookie running back class isn't that great. And especially there's no depth to it, right? Jeremiah Love, awesome prospect. He goes at the 2-3 turn. Jadarian Price lands an amazing spot, first round pick. He's usually gone by the end of round 5. Okay. And we're kind of done, you know, there's not a lot of guys to invest in at rookies. The second year guys, awesome class last year. We've got starters and projected starters coming out of year 2. Where do they go? You could get Bashal Tootin in round 6 maybe, but that whole tier is pretty much Judkins, Henderson. Yeah. All those guys are gone by the end of round 6. So there's your upside group of running backs. Yeah. How are you going to beat the guys who go early at running back if that kind of like high upside tier is basically wiped out? Now there's guys I like Jonathan Brooks, but he's rocketed up since he's looked healthier. He's, you know, he's going in the 90s a lot of the times now. So it's not like you can sit back in round 13 and scoop up Jonathan Brooks. You know, it's like, how do I beat these teams that have the early running backs? And I think in a lot of cases, it's by also having some early running backs. Maybe I've got 2 or 3 guys. Maybe I've got 4 total running backs on the build. And I'm done. That Mike Beers hyperfragile. This is Justin Herzig one with a hyperfragile team back in 2020. It's a build that has worked. You know, there's historical backing to it. And I think it makes a lot of sense for this current landscape. As we talked about earlier, it's June. We might have running backs that bubble up as really strong picks. Nicholas Singleton could look like an awesome pick. You know, Tyjae Spears could be someone that we're like starting to think could push Tony Pollard or something. Like, I don't know. Yeah. There's like a bunch of guys. I don't feel confident in either of those plays. Yeah, there's outs. There's things that can go down. Yeah. There's things that can go down, you know? And so the landscape could be pretty different in August, or at least mildly different, you know, and I'm mixing in different builds. I do have some zero running back builds now, to be clear. I have some hero running back builds. I have builds where I go running back, and then push it for running back 3. I've got a mix of things that I'm doing. But yeah, one of the things that I'm doing is like, I've got builds that are 4X running backs, like 4 running backs in a row. Like I've not really done that in the past. I think that's where something like when we're evaluating this player landscape, using Sims and using logic to an extent of like, running backs just aren't really the upside at the position is drying up faster, right? Yeah. That's such a big core part of what's going on. Is you like, who can you sell yourself up on realistic upside? Not the kind of guy that you can go, I'll cut him. If it doesn't work out, I'll cut him. Because you can't cut him. Right. So who is a guy that you have the confidence that you want on your roster all year and then has upside, especially upside he can achieve without an injury? You know, like a Bucky Irving, a Chase Brown, like that kind of play. it's thin this year.
I think that there's two things happening here. So it's funny that you bring all this up because I'm working on the running back section in the draft guide right now. And one of the things that I'm doing that I do every year to a degree, I'm trying to do it in like different ways and more precise ways every year. But I'm looking at how we've drafted running backs within their position, every position within their position. So like positional rank, like so RB1 to 12, RB1 to 24, up to 48. And I do that at wide receiver, and then I do it at quarterback through 24 and tight end through 24. And I'm looking at the R squared between where they were drafted positional rank wise and how many points per game they actually scored, right? Just to see how predictive and how well we've done things based on what the market has said, what ADP has said. And if you look at running back and you look at RB1 to RB48, and you compare that to wide receiver 1 through wide receiver 48, number one, since 2014, running back has actually been more predictive when you look at guys who have played 8 or more games in points per game. But the really crazy thing is that since 2016, so you're cutting off the first 3 years in that subset, it's basically just continued to get more and more predictive. Like we've gotten better and better at predicting which running backs are. There's been, some valleys in there. Like 2023 was a pretty bad year for how we did things ADP wise. But like last year, we were at like a 0.49 R squared. The year before that, 0.47, when the average over this time period was 0.39. So we've been better over the last few years and handful of years than we were at the start of this sample, right? And I think two things are happening. I think that, I do think that people are just generally smarter and we're better at pinpointing who's good, who isn't. There's information everywhere.
We're paying more attention too.
We're paying more attention. Like there's reason as to why we would be better at predicting which running backs are going to be good. But I also do think this plays a very direct role in what you referenced earlier, which was the way the NFL landscape has actually changed. Because one of the things that's gone on with running back recently is not only is it a more run heavy league in the NFL right now, like we're seeing just more runs in general and running back having a larger like pie of touchdowns, let's say, or whatever the case may be. So like that's going to help these earlier round guys who we know are going to get big workloads do well. But while this is all going on and this 12 personnel and these heavy personnel packages are happening, running backs are being targeted at a lower rate. But the elite guys are still seeing pretty decent target shares overall. And so I think what we saw back in 2016, and by the way, this is not fully fledged out in the draft guide yet, but this was like literally the section I was about to start like writing and like digging into. So this is very much like fresh on my mind, but not fully fledged out. But what I think is going on is that when we did zero RB, when it was most successful, which probably peaked in like 2016-ish timeframe, like in that, like peaked, right? Like
I mean, there was good zero running back best ball results, like really good results for like 2021, 2022.
Yes. And you still had it then. You still had it then. But what I think is going on is that back then, even 5 years ago, we were able to say, this guy at the very least is going to have a really good receiving role. And then it can build up into something bigger on the ground as well. Those guys are so difficult to find right now, in my opinion.
I agree with that. And that's something I think Gretsch has written about this, Ben Gretsch, but this kind of that archetype getting phased out a little bit over time. And so I think there's definitely something to that. I also think it's something where there's guys, Mike Davis, when he was the Falcons starter, was like a 5th round pick in best ball. Right. Alexander Madison, when he was kind of anointed as the Vikings starter, but like clearly wasn't good.
Zamir White a couple years ago.
Zamir White. Yeah. These types of guys, we're talking about 6th round picks, right? Like Trey Sermon, I mean, I guess you could say he was an upside pick. I thought he was so bad that I didn't buy it. But
he was like a 7th rounder. Like he was like,
Yeah. So, but you have these kind of guys that are, for one reason or another, kind of more like volume plays where it's like they're either the prospect profile or the NFL efficiency sample really wasn't there. That kind of reminds me of Rashad White or Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason or, these guys that are now going very cheaply, like around like 120 or something like that. Those are your old 6th round picks. Rashad White signs, a cheap deal, but he's the nominal starter for the Commanders. Good offense, can project him for volume because he's going to catch passes. 6th round pick. Easy fade. We're going to take give me the guy. Chris Rodriguez, I think, would have been more like a 7th round pick, a few years ago. And Bashal Tutin might be going behind him. But now it's Bashal Tutin's 5'6", and you have to pay up for the upside.
Yeah, and it makes that discussion more difficult for people like us who might like be into that player because he's the upside case, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I liked Bashal Tutin a lot as a prospect, right? But now you're in this you have a real decision to make, whereas before,
for sure,
as an analyst, you're just like, yeah, draft him as an 8th, 9th round pick, easy, like just done.
And why am I taking Kyren Williams? Kyren Williams is a fragile play. I can get Bashal Tutin, who might outperform Kyren Williams in the 9th or 10th round. Like, give me a receiver and I'll beat you at running back anyway. But now I'm like, I'm going to go to war with some of the most fragile, dustiest running backs I can think of in the 120s. Like, it's just harder. Like, how am I going to building a super team with the 0 running back build was always like, I will get the upside profiles that are undervalued. I will get some veteran profiles that help me score points early in the season until my other guys come online. I'll get rookie profiles people don't realize have a much better chance of earning work over the course of the year than they're being given credit for. I got the dusty guys.
Yeah.
I have cheaper dusty guys than I used to, just pure volume plays, but I don't have the upside at a very cheap cost to where I go, why on earth am I taking this? Like, Chase Brown's fine, but why am I going to spend a 2nd round pick when I can get, 80% of his production by the end of the season in the 10th round? But I don't know who that is. Yeah. And that's what makes it harder to avoid those early running backs. Now, I don't like all the early running backs like the same, but
are there any that you are fading a little bit?
There's a couple that I'm trying to be like a little bit less heavy on. James Cook, I'm not taking as much on because I want to be overweight on Ashton Genty. I actually like Saquon Barkley a good amount. I like him more than Cook.
I like.
And so I'm taking generally like I'm getting 2 picks there, so I have like a good amount of Cook Barkley. So it's not like I'm fully fading Cook, but he's someone I'm not as excited about. I'm not as excited about Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Kyren Williams. Like, there are these profiles that I do fundamentally think are kind of fragile, and I don't think the players are that good. So I'm like, I don't love clicking this guy. Javonte Williams is a click I'm making, but I don't love it.
Oh my gosh. That's I have had a hard time with both him and because I think David Montgomery is sort of in the same boat.
He's a volume-based player.
Yeah. Which historically we've taught people / we've done but I'm also trying to not overthink it a little bit with those players in a way, where I'm just like, this seems so straightforward, but realistically, I don't want to be massively overweight on those two because it scares the crap out of me. Yeah.
Me neither. But I think I also am not like hard fading them in a way that I would have a few years ago because it would have been so much easier. So like, look, if I have Ashton Genty, Saquon Barkley, T. Higgins, or Zay Flowers, or Garrett Wilson, or whatever, and a Javonte Williams, I have some CeeDee Lamb, Saquon Barkley, Javonte Williams, and Tedero McMillan teams or whatever. Like, I think that's pretty fun, actually. Like, and then I get Dak. I might take Jake Ferguson. I got this Cowboys build. Like, I'm kind of enjoying some of these Javonte teams. It's not as clear cut, I think, as it would have been if you had like, what can you get now versus what can you get later? It used to be, I think, at running back, there was upside available later. And I'm hopeful that maybe we get some of that in August, where we have some guys emerge. There could be some injuries. There could be some shakeups. There could be like a suspension or something. And we do have guys maybe in round 12 where we're like, this dude looks like a potential league winner. And that changes up what I'm doing early. Probably it's more like next year when we have good rookie running backs again and we can go back to, but I want to build for the environment that I'm in, right? I don't want to just build based on what worked in a different environment.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that Montgomery and Williams types were a little bit easier to arbitrage back in the day. Like, it was just like not as because not that they would have the player that we'd arbitrage with would have like projectable volume in the same way, but they had outs for that volume. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The hit rate's lower on the volume, but also people are overestimating that the hit rate that player will hold the volume.
Yeah.
And then I've got a guy who might earn volume over the course of the year because he's good.
Yeah.
But again, as we talked about, like Travion Henderson going at the 4-5 turn and I'm not even drafting him. is crazy to me. I'm like, what's happened to the game I love?
Yeah.
This guy should be a 7th round pick, and I should be telling everyone they're crazy for not taking him at the 4 or 5 turn.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't have a lot of Travion Henderson. I'm a huge Drake May guy. I want to invest in the Patriots. And yet I'm like, I don't know how, in a format where like I'm not picking my starters and I'm not just kind of putting them on the bench for a few weeks until he takes the job. Like, and I kind of want my early picks to contribute all year, ideally.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Yeah, he might hurt my advance rate pretty meaningfully compared to some of these other, guys that are available in the same range. Like Cam Scadaboo's another 2nd-year guy, and if he's healthy, he's going to get a ton of work all year. So he's a good pass catcher. He's good at the goal line. So yeah, I mean, it's just the profiles that used to be kind of systemically undervalued are not being undervalued right now. Mm-hmm. One other thing I should note about it being June, though, is that the people in these draft rooms are not going to be the exact same people later. Right. Like they will literally just be different drafters in August that aren't drafting right now. And those people, I'm hoping, feel differently about Travion Henderson than the people that are drafting right now. Because I would really like some like 6th round, 7th round Travion Henderson.
You recognize the upside. Like you recognize that it still exists. Yeah, of course.
100%. Yeah. 100%. I just don't want to pay quite as much as I'm paying now. And that would be another thing. Like I talked about like, round 12 or whatever, or round 16, some running backs opening up. But even if it was something like at the 6-7 turn, I can reliably get Bashal Tutin and Travion Henderson, that would change the way I'm drafting too.
Yeah, exactly.
For adults with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms, every choice matters. Tremfya offers self-injection or intravenous infusion from the start. Tremfya is administered as injections under the skin or infusions through a vein every 4 weeks, followed by injections under the skin every 4 or 8 weeks. If your doctor decides that you can self-inject Tremfya, proper training is required. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
This is Tab Ramos from Inside American Soccer, and this summer, Topgolf is turning into the ultimate soccer destination. They're not just throwing games on in the background. Topgolf is going all in on soccer. They've got a new soccer-themed game you can play with your group, special in-venue activations, exclusive food and drink items inspired by the global game, and at more than 60 locations, they've even installed full-size soccer goals so you can try to hit golf balls right into the net. And every match all summer long will be on throughout the venue. So it's a great place to watch with friends, hang out, compete a little bit, and enjoy the atmosphere. And if you want to keep the fun going all summer, you can get the Topgolf Summer Fun Pass, which lets you play every single day and bring up to 5 guests every visit. Get yours now at topgolf.com/funpass. Summer hits different at Topgolf.
I feel similarly in a way to what's gone on with quarterback, where, obviously you have like Josh Allen's kind of like in his own area. And I love your take on Allen and how frequently you're getting him and all that kind of stuff. But the crazy thing with quarterback is that historically, like if you were to like really dig into like middle round QB type data, like I'm talking like QB 6 to 10 ish, in that range, or like QB 4 to 10, whatever the case may be. Especially like pocket passer guys, like they've been like relatively not great bets, but the difference in what I saw this last year too, happening very frequently, especially on DK. It's definitely happening this year, but again, it's what can you get later? And with the later round guys continuously being pushed up because of what's probably a scarcity thing in people's eyes, right? Like they don't want to fall behind and they're worried about not getting that player. And then that just slowly gets these guys ADPs getting higher and higher. But when that happens, it does make the players, the Burrows of the world be easier to click because there's only a 2-round gap between him to the next tier or two of quarterback. And so I guess my question to you is how you're approaching quarterback. Are you fading Josh Allen? Is that typically the way that you approach things? And do you see the same thing that I'm seeing in the way that the quarterback landscape has kind of come together?
Yeah, I am fading Josh Allen pretty aggressively. The market seems to be indicating Josh Allen is like twice as good as the next best quarterback. Like there's one elite quarterback in the NFL and it's Josh Allen, and everyone else is kind of like expensive versions of, the kind of the pocket passer archetype.
Yeah.
But that's like not true at all.
Yeah.
Like Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, like Drake May was outscoring Josh Allen in the fantasy playoffs last year.
Yeah, right.
And he just got AJ Brown, and he got Romeo Doubs, who is also an upgrade. Like, and he has Trayvon Henderson going into his second year and is very explosive last year. Like, there's so many ways that this offense could get better and be, still very much built around Drake May. I don't 26 ADP for Josh Allen and Drake May is going in the middle of the 6th round. Like, I just won't have Josh Allen then.
Even like Jalen Hurts, who will go in like the late 7th at times.
Jalen Hurts is an awesome pick.
And I'm like, there is what are the true odds here that Jalen Hurts just straight up outscores Josh Allen this year? It's definitely not the gap that we're seeing right now in ADP from an odds perspective.
Yeah, and like this is a game where you have to advance, then you have to advance again, and then you have to score the most points in week 17. And like Hurts, because of the tush push has not been banned. Like this is an ADP right. I would expect if like the tush push had gotten banned.
Yeah, right. He's
barely ahead of Dak now, who I think is also decent enough pick, but Hurts is a crazy good value. Like in a given week, he can explode because of his ability to score touchdowns. And like they'll be fine. I know, they're losing Brown, but I think they added Mekhi Lemon, who I think is a really good value in his own right, and a good player, really good prospect. And they have Eli Stowers. Like they'll be fine.
And they don't have Kevin Patullo.
They don't have Kevin Patullo. They've got Sean Mannion, who's Jordan Mailata was saying he's a wizard.
Yeah,
he said if I could put 3 people, the 3 smartest people in a room, Sean would be in there. Actually, probably only be Sean. That's what he said. He couldn't think of another smart coach on the roster. But
it's amazing that team's won 2 Super Bowls in the last 10 years or whatever. Like the way they talk about their coaching staffs and stuff, and the way that we've seen like Sirianni do it. Like it's just wild.
It's crazy. Howie, man. Howie knows his stuff.
Exactly.
But I mean, this offense is a bounce back candidate. I feel really good about their OC hire. I think they'll improve. And yet, and you have a rushing quarterback who specifically scores rushing touchdowns, and he's available past, pick 75. And if anything, it seems to me that he's falling on DraftKings. It's bizarre.
Yes. And so and then that next group too, like Justin Herbert has crazy upside.
Yep. And he's in the 80s.
You're right. To me, it means even like I understand like Lamar in round, especially when he falls to like the 5-6 turn and stuff, because you're starting to get in that like opportunity cost range where it's a little bit iffy, especially if like the room is sharp enough and taking the right running backs and wide receivers by the time you're making that pick. So like I get it, because I think that he obviously can match / exceed Josh Allen pretty easily, right? Despite what he did last year, but it does
another OC change that's exciting,
right. But like even Jaden Daniels has upside, and all these guys have upside, and then you look at like the quarterbacks that we used to get in like round 17, right? That we like literally would, you would never play in a season long league or be excited about. But those guys are like round 12 picks now. And when you shrink that gap, it makes the guys at the top more appealing than they otherwise would be, because there isn't that discount late. It's similar to what you were talking about with running back. The difference is that like instead of running back just being drafted earlier, running back is just being drafted in a smarter way, right? Whereas quarterback is just being drafted earlier than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have like Kyler Murray like got benched last year, and there's some real risk there, but he's also a rushing quarterback in a Kevin O'Connell offense with Justin Jefferson and other pretty good pass catchers. Like that could go well,
right?
He's still available outside the top 100 picks.
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes, who's going to go down as a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best to ever do it. is available outside the top 90 picks. And everything about his rehab has been very bullish so far. I mean, he's participating in 7-on-7 right now. He's not doing 11-on-11s, and they're not doing like motions so no one runs into him. But like, he literally hit Xavier Worthy on a deep pass and then skipped to the sideline, like going nuts. Like, he's looking pretty healthy. He's looking pretty good for week 1. Maybe he doesn't even play week 1. Maybe he misses the first few games, but like, he can easily pay off this ADP, even if that happens, because of the way these tournaments work. Like, you get Patrick Mahomes back as Patrick Mahomes in weeks 15, 16, and 17, where all the money is, and you spent pick 90 on him versus a guy who spent a 3rd round pick, maybe 2nd round pick on Josh Allen. Like, the opportunity cost for those two picks is so different, especially everything we talked about with smarter pricing at running back.
Yeah.
It's just like so crazy. I just don't really understand the quarterback pricing. I think there's a lot of opportunities at quarterback this year that are atypical. Like, I think the quarterback market generally is pretty efficient. Like, at least it has been pretty efficient.
Yeah.
I haven't had huge stands at quarterback. I mean, a couple years ago when Drake May was going in the final rounds, I had a big stand on him, but it's been harder generally to have giant stands at quarterback because you're stacking, you're
right.
You know,
right.
More or less like we're pricing the guys who run, you know, pretty efficiently, but it doesn't feel as efficient to me this year. I don't know why this is happening, but I am trying to take advantage of it.
Yeah. I mean, like, and also, I guess one more question about, because this ties into tight end as well. But I think the fear that I would have as, like, if I were, you know, like, I'll still say I'm an amateur best ball bro at this point. But, like, you know, this is maybe playing devil's advocate a little bit with the early round tight end and quarterback. So you get let's just put Josh Allen and Brock Bowers together, right? So you can get Josh Allen in the 3rd, Brock Bowers in the 2nd. If you fade those players, and it sounds like you and I are on the same page with which one we would be fading way more than the other, right? If you're fading those guys, do you have the fear of the nuclear game in the playoffs that just completely destroy you? Or are you simply okay with playing probability and just being logical and saying, look, if Josh Allen puts up a 50 burger in week 16 and I just don't have that, but my advance rates were really strong, that's just the way this game goes?
That's basically where I'm at on Josh Allen, and it's a position where I can get a 30 burger from someone else.
Yeah.
I didn't have a ton of Kyle Pitts last year. He went nuts in week 16. I got teams through the finals without Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the idea that like Josh Allen will be straight up necessary. I mean, maybe if he puts up like 55 in the final, you're probably going to have a Josh Allen team win it, but you know,
but it feels like it's an easier hill to climb back from with a quarterback doing that than a tight end doing that, right? Like an early round
100%, 100%. And it's going to be hard. Like, Josh Allen is fighting with one hand tied behind his back, maybe more than one hand from an advance rate perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, the year I won BBM, Mike Evans dropped 50 and he basically just wasn't in the BBM final. Like, there weren't enough teams in the BBM final to really take advantage of that. Now, in the DK final, which is bigger, almost certain a Mike Evans team did win. But it's like, you know, you got to think about, like, in some ways, like, if I'm doing more higher stake stuff where I'm expecting a smaller final, smaller pods to get through, I'd be even less interested in Josh Allen, where it's like, there's a good chance that Josh Allen could drop 50 and not be in the tournament I'm playing.
Yeah.
Because he has such a different cost than the other quarterbacks with extremely similar profiles.
Yeah.
It's not even like upside profiles. Like Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, like, these are straight up rushing quarterbacks.
Right.
Like,
we're not drafting 2nd year CJ Stroud.
Yeah. This isn't a projection.
Yeah.
This is just like, these dudes could like crush. They could easily, if Lamar Jackson outscores Josh Allen this year, like, why would we be surprised? It'd be weird to be surprised.
Yeah.
You know? And so the cost difference of Josh Allen to the rest of the group puts him at a major disadvantage from an advance rate perspective, even before you get into some of the, you know, this year's pricing around these. I mean, and look, wide receivers are still expensive. This is kind of going back to what I was saying before. Like, hey, you know, it isn't 2020. It isn't 2021 where the wide receiver 2 is in the 2nd round. Like, there's 6 wide receivers off the board in the first 12 picks. Half of the first round is wide receivers. wide receivers do kind of dry up like they have over the past couple years. It is easy to fall behind at receiver, and spending a 3rd round pick on Josh Allen instead of getting, or 2nd round pick instead of getting like AJ Brown, or, you could get George Pickens or, any of those receivers in the 3rd, Nico. Like that's a huge opportunity cost, and something that by round 7, I might be looking at. It's like Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, or Josh Allen and DK Metcalf.
Right.
Like, it's pretty different. Yeah. So that's where I'm thinking like, okay, Josh Allen, it's a variant game. Josh Allen might ultimately be the correct answer because he's awesome. He is the best quarterback in the league. He has the best chance of going nuclear. But I want to play this season sharp and not play scared and do what I think the best things I can do for all these prices are. And if Josh Allen goes absolutely nuts, that's probably going to suck for me. But he's so expensive that it's like, it's possible it doesn't even suck for me.
No, exactly. No, I'm 100% with you. Before I let you go, give me like a hot take, a truth serum take, if you will. You guys have done a lot of those in your day for this season.
Yeah. So we've talked about on ship chasing that maybe we do, the kind of the cold sweat take for the truth serum, because it should be something that like you kind of don't want to happen. I guess one thing one thing that's on my mind is some of these 2nd-year running backs maybe mattering more than like I'm thinking they do now. Like, people are like, what about Jaden Blue? Or, are you interested in him? Kind of thing, like Dylan Sampson, some of these types of guys potentially emerging as surprising playmakers and guys that do shake up like what I'm currently evaluating the landscape as. Like, in a way, like Tank Bigsby, like kind of sucked as a rookie, but like actually was pretty decent in his 2nd season, and paid off a late round ADP there. So it's not really a super hot take, but one thing I really do have my eye on the potential for running backs I don't believe in to bubble up into roles or into opportunity, or just starting to flash, like maybe they've taken a step and they do ultimately shake up this landscape, and that June doesn't define the entire 2026 drafting season.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really good take. Pat, this was awesome. I always love chopping it up with you. Let everyone know where they can find you, what you're working on, the shows you're doing, all that stuff.
Yeah, so you can check out on the Legendary Upside YouTube channel, doing a ton of content, and as well as on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, Legendary Upside, drafting a lot of teams, doing weekly pods with Greg Branos of the Coach Speak Index, Sam Sherman, who won BBM last year, doing a show called That's Fair with him, reference to our ADP chasing days. I'm also doing ADP chasing every week, every Tuesday evening, ship chasing on Wednesdays. I do a show on Tuesday where on the Leg Up channel, where I just take the top recommendation from the Sidekick using the sim-driven player recommendations that I talked about before. I just take the top guy so you can kind of see like what the sims are viewing as pretty strong teams in this landscape. And then I'm doing a lot of writing and ranking over at Legendary Upside, legendaryupside.com. You can get all that there. Wrote up the rookie wide receivers. I'm writing up the rookie running backs and 2nd-year running backs for best ball as well. Matt Irby's got some great dynasty content on the site as well. And then if you want to check out the Sidekick, it's at legendaryupside.com/sidekick.
Awesome, man. Definitely check it out. You're pumping out some awesome content. And I obviously am a big fan of you, both on and off the field, Pat.
I appreciate that. And likewise.
Make sure you check out my stuff over on lateround.com. I do have an official release date for the draft guide. It's going to be July 10th this year. It's been July 1st other years, but we had so much chaos with the website rebuild and just so much going on that, we moved it back a little bit this year, but that really doesn't change that much because it's a season long guide and it's, just a little bit later than normal. No one's really drafting their season long leagues on July 3rd anyway, but July 10th is the release date. That's going to be a Friday. As always, if you pre-order now, you'll get it at a discount. And then every Friday through August, you will get an update to that guide. So check that out, lateround.com. Otherwise, everyone,
Thanks for tuning in.
Lots of places can expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity, which is way more than anyone can do on their own. If we find anything suspicious, like new loans or changes to your financial accounts, we alert you right away, all through text, phone, email, or the LifeLock app. Save up to 30% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
I'm U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. We all get distracted when we drive, but how we handle these distractions can be a matter of life or death. Please put your phones on silent and take a mental note to focus on driving.
Paid for by NHTSA.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.